Hello, I'm Ed Farrar, your head of sport here at Raw 1251 AM, and I am joined by Ted Crowson, the sports officer at Warwick Student Union. Ted, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. It's good to be here, isn't it?
And we'll kick off first, because obviously sports officer, everyone will assume that your biggest role is within Varsity and how you kind of organise that. I want to ask you first of all, what kind of things do you specifically have to control when you're organising the Varsity competition?
In Varsity itself, the sports officers are the lead on Varsity, so anything that you do see has been or will be decided by a sports officer. So one thing that we've actually said before is a sports officer can be judged on Varsity, so we'll see how that is. Hopefully mine's been quite a successful year, but that's down to the people, isn't it? But so I work with, as we talked about, the Coventry sports officer, Alexa, deciding everything from the fixtures that are played, the showcases, what rules we play it in, when they're played, where they're played, what sports feature, what marketing we do. So it's right down from sort of base level, consulting with clubs, asking them what if this fixture's okay, right up to the strategic level and thinking in advance. So we're already planning sort of hopefully 5 years ahead and trying to improve Varsity and make it a much better spectacle for all students and staff at the university, so it really is a big event.
Is there anything specifically you brought in this year which is a bit different about Varsity?
That's interesting. So in terms of, I'd say the marketing that I've tried to do differently, working in a partnership with someone that's a 50-50 stakeholder is quite difficult, and as I said, the Varsity can be won on and off the pitch, so before Varsity's even played it could be lost if you give away too many points for certain fixtures, or if you decide to give a lot of fixtures away that Coventry are better at us aren't. There aren't a lot of those, but the ones that they are, so motorsport is a heavily pointed fixture, so I'm not sure. What did I bring in? New marketing. So one thing that I tried to do is try and create a bit of guerrilla marketing around Varsity this year. As you saw with the Team Warwick stuff as well, we brought in the Oculus screens and trying to give Team Warwick a bigger presence. But for the marketing of Varsity, sort of doing some guerrilla type pop-up lecture shout-outs with the bear in the bear costume. Also hitting pop. So we had a Varsity pop. Which was a bit understated, but still it's getting that process in. So it was launching the video. The bear was on stage again, throwing out some free Varsity merchandise and getting the awareness around. So I'd like to think it was more fun stuff, and also giving away a box at the ice hockey was quite a nice touch, hopefully, and it got the word about. So yeah, it's trying to increase that student experience, but there's so much more potential for Varsity itself.
I was going to say, Team Warwick has been quite a big thing for you this year. You've seen posters all around campus. Is it something that you've been trying to bring in a specific team spirit within Warwick University?
Yeah, I think so. So you, whenever you go to sort of big national competitions, and a lot of the students do, or they play other teams, you'll see that they're there in support as a university. So thinking of sporting institution, I don't really like them, but Loughborough, they're always there. You always know that Loughborough are there. They're out there in force. The same with Nottingham. The same with even Birmingham. So the best thing that Warwick can do is to support its players wholeheartedly, and you could create a real atmosphere, a real community, a real sporting community at Warwick. If we had, say, 1,000 people down watching the football on a Wednesday, that would be so fantastic and would spur actually Warwick's performances on to greater levels. So even if all the sports clubs went round and supported each other when they're not playing fixtures, that would generate so much better atmosphere, and then more people normally equals better atmosphere. So then you could then encourage sort of more sort of casual students, staff to come along as well. And playing in front of those crowds are probably the pinnacle of anyone's sort of sporting career at university as well.
I was going to say, we covered the Varsity rugby at the Rico Arena on Raw and WTV. That was a great event. I know it was a slightly disappointing result, but you found that there was great atmosphere, lots of Warwick and Coventry. How did you find it? Was that kind of as the pinnacle of Varsity almost, playing in this kind of internationally renowned stadium? It must have been pretty fantastic to have organise and view.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for the players themselves. It's great for sort of sports exec and the sports officers in terms of developing themselves as well and working with a professional sporting body in WAS. One thing I would like to see so much more is to have a bigger attendance at the Ricoh Arena. We did manage to drink all the beer, apparently, and they ran out of food as well. So we ate them out of house and home and drank them dry. So that's one thing we won. But in terms of the Ricoh itself, it's a venue that has so much potential, and if we could manage to get, say, 10,000 in that stadium, it'd be fantastic. And going forwards, if it was to be in that stadium, trying to find a way to make tickets either cheaper and work with WAS and the relationship we have with WAS to encourage more people to come and watch would be something that's fantastic, and just raise the profile of this university and sport in general.
Yeah, it was a fantastic year for Varsity. Obviously, we did lose the rugby, bit disappointing, but you were lifting the trophy at the Ricoh Arena in front of the disappointed rugby players. But again, it must be fantastic. I know we win every year, so maybe it kind of takes the gloss off it. But still, winning Varsity must be a pretty fantastic feeling, especially after all the hard work you put in.
Winning Varsity was a relief for one. As you've known, we're undefeated still for 27 years, and thankfully I wasn't the sports officer that lost it, although all the credit does go to the teams because I didn't participate, but was shouting from the sidelines for a lot of it, quite heated stuff, probably quite stressed and wanting to win. So it was brilliant that we actually sealed Varsity on the Saturday evening. That's something that we didn't do last year, particularly with the change to only first team. So Varsity should be so much more competitive, although this year we won by 10 points greater difference than last year.
Was it a bit disappointing that it didn't go to the final day?
It is, in terms of the neutral, yes. If I was to have your perfect Varsity, you would want it to go to probably the final match and generate that real buzz around it. Luckily, it wasn't, because my lads,
stress level,
the stress level would be huge, and also I can't trust the rugby lads letting me down again. But no, they are great, and giving them that opportunity to play in that stadium is brilliant, and it's also a credit to Coventry that they've stepped up for both the showcase in front of both the big crowds and won. And quite convincingly won on that Sunday. But you would like to see it go down to the final day and see it as a finale, yeah.
Absolutely. Obviously, Varsity is quite a big thing, but when you became sports officer, when you were elected, what were your big plans apart from Varsity? What were you aiming to achieve in this year?
What was I aiming to achieve in this year? I think I didn't put it down in the manifesto, but one sports officer's holy grail is to try and get Wednesday afternoons free. That's something nationwide that sports officers are working on. Another was to sort out our kit problems, which I hope I've managed to do so far. So getting rid of the agreement with BLK was the first step, which was successful. I managed to do that quite quickly. And then retendering and making sure that the tender process was right for kit, and making sure that we chose the right kit provider was something that's close to a lot of sports people's heart. That and circling is probably two of the most emotive issues in sport at Warwick. Other than that, I've tried to, behind the scenes and not maybe so publicly, try to focus on widening participation. So particularly disability sport is something that's quite close to my heart, in trying to make it more accessible for people to be involved in sport, and inclusivity as well. So I introduced sort of with the second year of the We Are All Team Warwick campaign, trying to kick homophobia out of sport and trying to raise issues around LGBT, UA plus equality with the Odd Shaped Balls play, and still in negotiations with Nigel Owens to try and get him onto campus. Although we did have to postpone. I'm sure we can sort that out for this year. But there are so many big projects along with Team Warwick as well, and continuing that take up a lot of time. And it's trying to find a couple that are main priorities. And I think I've identified that slowly, and a lot of it is project work. So it might not be me that's going to be the one that guarantees that and is actually celebrating the win. But the work that each sports officer puts in over the years, and each one has, just gets us that little bit closer to those really big aims. So Wednesday afternoons is the big aim for everyone at sport, but also the smaller aims and trying to encourage more participation.
And when you say, I mean, obviously you come from the rugby background, which is a pretty massive club, obviously. There's quite a lot of teams. Have you found that when you kind of come into a sports officer, you've had to interact with clubs that have a lot, quite a small membership, which you kind of wouldn't have interacted with before? Has that been a bit of a struggle? Trying to make that work?
Yeah, it's great to see, actually. So my sporting general knowledge has increased just from speaking to clubs and seeing how they work it, talking about their specific rules, talking about their sport specifically, what challenges they face. So yeah, that's helped me a lot, and it's helped me to understand exactly, pardon me, what clubs need. And what they do really well. And a lot of our clubs do things really well. And I'd say Warwick achieve very well for the kind of provision we have here, the facilities we've got. Luckily, Warwick students are quite high achievers, and that sort of translates into sport as well. They sort of keep that attitude in there. And the sporting community actually at Warwick is very tight-knit. So I have known a lot of the sort of members of other sports before, but nowhere near as many as now, which is a massive benefit. And seeing the likes of polo becoming sort of national champions, the likes of judo doing very well as well, and fencing winning the trophy at Bucks. So there are so many different sports that do so well for Warwick. So it's important, I think, to make sure that every sport is funded to the best we can.
Has that been a highlight for you then, working out all of these different clubs and kind of experiencing everything that Warwick University can offer? Because obviously no student at the university has the ability to join every single sports club and experience it all. Has it been quite enlightening for you to kind of understand Warwick sport at a level that kind of nobody else can?
I think... Yeah, it has been enlightening. I'd recommend. I think one thing that I do really regret is not joining as many clubs as I could have done, or trying out clubs at least. So, having come from rugby, I just went straight to rugby because I knew that's where my friends were from home. That's where I made the closest friendships, and that's where I shared interests with people and would be comfortable in that environment. But I'd recommend getting involved in as many sports as possible, or at least trying them out, because each club is fantastic, and also it gets you to know a bit more about Warwick and a bit different things, because there are so many sort of different backgrounds in all of the sports clubs. So I regret that. I'd also regret probably not going to as many training sessions as I could for different sports, which is something that that I'm still trying to do. So trying to get out there and try and just experience the sport and let someone sort of beat me at their own sport, because I mean I'm not even good at my sport, but yeah, trying to do that and trying to see how things work. So it has been enlightening. It's been good to see. I'd say the sports officer's role is sort of likening to the president of a club role, but you're the president of all the sports clubs. So you're there and you're looking down and trying to look after them all and trying to take decisions that are the right decisions but are the best for the sporting community at Warwick.
Yeah, so has there been one specific thing this year that you found particularly hard to try and implement? Because I think it's been really, really challenging.
One thing that's been hard to implement. It's a tough question, Ed. I'd say Wednesday afternoons are the hardest thing, and we've been working on that. We've tried to define what we want to the university, and going through the university's channels of democracy and governance. So defining that as sort of full-time students that are based on campus, that are not doing professional courses or fit to practice courses, and then trying to work on also authorised absences for sport and lecture capture. So it being a sort of three-pronged attack in trying to bring the time back from 1 o'clock, which is currently a guide, that is at discretion of the head of department. So trying to bring that time back, but also trying to work on different areas to give people flexibility. That's the hardest thing to implement, and it will continue to be the hardest thing to implement as a sports officer. But other than that, there are just lots of challenges. There are a hell of a lot of challenges you face being in the sabbatical position, and you don't realise that, and before you get into the role, and it does limit you. But I'd say yeah, Wednesday afternoons are
Is working with Warwick University itself a bit of a challenge then? I mean, have you found trying to work with the university a bit of a problem?
I think I wouldn't say it's a problem. I'd say that working with the university is a positive relationship. Both parties want to improve things, and I'd say one thing about Warwick that I've sort of picked up, and one thing about Warwick students in general, is we do criticise ourselves a lot. And that's mostly because we've got a passion to try and improve things. So there are so many people and so many sort of departments and so many places at Warwick that have great ideas, that want to implement their ideas, and they think like everyone has a great idea and thinks it's the right way to go. And it's trying to marry up those ideas. So the hardest thing working with the universities and with Warwick Sport is us trying to marry up our sort of great ideas together and try and produce one central idea and belief that we can really push forward with, so we can organise ourselves and then push that idea. So you've seen a lot of great collaborative projects like the Team Warwick, like Marissa's Creative Warwick as well, and they're just some of the great campaigns that have been happening with the university. So there are a lot of great things that come out of it, but we could do so much more.
And that must be something that you're particularly passionate about, is how Warwick Student Union can kind of influence the national opinion, that how your beliefs and how the kind of things that you want to change across the country, there'll be other sports officers trying to drive for Wednesday afternoons. So you kind of find that almost, I mean, obviously with Coventry we want to beat them, with the Coventry sports officer, you have these same goals and kind of, feel quite a togetherness between them.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the great things that particularly the sports officers, and I'm sure this is similar with all the other positions, is we have our own network. So we meet regularly. I wouldn't say probably once a term. It's not that regularly, but and we talk quite regularly as well. So the sports officers talk to each other up and down the country. I know sports officers in Plymouth to St Andrews. I'm great friends with them all. So any decision, whether that be Wednesday afternoons and sharing best practice on that, is shared, and we talk about where we've been successful, what sort of tactics we've used. So having national connections is a huge bonus, and actually if we didn't have those, so if we were sort of disconnected from the NUS per se, or from books, then we'd probably lose some of that affinity and some of those connections. But at the same time, Warwick itself has been great in influencing nationally, and we've been very organised. So locally, we've influenced on Week Zero. We've influenced on the increase of fees, particularly for international students. But we've also influenced on the higher education bills. So you notice that the Lords, who are putting up the most sort of opposition to the higher education bills, and it's great that they are, because no one else is, have actually commented that Warwick's contribution has been fantastic. I can't remember what Lord it is particularly, but she's a huge advocate of the work that Warwick's done for it.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, you're coming to the end of your time as sports officer. What are your plans afterwards? What are you planning to do now that we've released from the position?
Relax. Play sport again, because I've not managed to do too much of it this year, for one reason or another. But for the most part, I've not got anything sorted. I'd like to try and stay loosely connected to sport at least. But if not, then I'm very happy to go travelling, as a typical Warwick student might do. But I've not seen a lot of the world yet, or not as much of the world as I'd like to. So yeah, trying to have a ticket around the globe would be very nice, or trying to get someone to pay for me to travel around the globe and work. So yeah, anything like that. And
obviously your successor Ellie Martin will be coming into the role next year. Have you got any specific advice for her when she takes up the position?
What would my advice be? Keep banging your head against the wall sometimes. Just keep pushing is the big one, and don't lose sight of the goals that you've had at the start. So obviously you'll come into the role, you'll see some limitations, and you'll know what is and what isn't possible. Hold true to your beliefs, pick a couple of priorities, and make sure that you just work on those throughout the year. So if it's one thing that you want to achieve, just work on that one thing and just hope that it gets done, because 1 year is an incredibly short amount of time. And in reality, you don't even have that by the time you're on your feet, and by the time you know what's happening. So pick one thing and try your best to achieve it.
And finally, any advice for any Warwick students who might be listening in, maybe a first, second year, or someone new to the university? In terms of like in sports clubs, what advice would you give to them?
In terms of sport, I'd give them advice of just keep doing it, keep turning up to sessions. Otherwise, you'll probably lose that support network. You'll lose the pretty much where you came from. So keep involved in sport for as much as you can, and you might put on a bit of weight if you don't. But just stay involved with sport. Try some new sport. Take it as seriously as you want to. It depends. Just make sure you enjoy it. That's the biggest thing. I've never taken sport as seriously, but so long as you're enjoying it, keep doing it. And for exams, maybe don't let it get in the way of your study. And they don't. The people here that do sport are fantastic at juggling academics and their sporting commitments. But even if you do let it get in the way, don't worry about it, because you can end up with a third like I did and come out just fine. So yeah, just do what you enjoy, and university isn't just it just isn't just a degree, it's an experience. So get involved with as much as you can while you're here, because if not, then time's running out and you might regret it.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ted. It's been an absolute pleasure. Finally, have you got a song? You've had the 20 minutes to think about it. Have you got a song that you'd like to play at the end of this?
What song would I like to play? I'm trying to rack my brain. How about Libertines, Don't Look Back into the Sun?
Excellent choice. Thank you very much for joining us.